Wow. Wow. It has been a bit more than a week since Attack on Titan finished. And I have tarried in bringing you my full episode breakdown. The reason being, when I do things, especially when it comes to Attack on Titan, I want to do it right. And I don't see any way in which someone can make a thorough video immediately upon viewing the work they viewed. And so I let it sit in for a week. My computer was also gone, so there's that too. But the main thing is I let it sit in for a week. I gathered all my thoughts, I gathered everything I wanted to gather, and now I'm going to come and present it to you. So, as I said beforehand, a week ago, the quintessential motion picture, the preeminent film of this generation, peerless in every regard, a masterwork so good it cannot be improved upon. That is why I refer to it as the immaculate masterpiece. I call it the immaculate masterpiece because every single aspect, every part of a motion picture you want in a motion picture was elevated to its highest possible extent. It was flawless, sublime, whatever you want to call it. It was literally the zenith of this medium. And that word gets used, abused a lot, but it is quite literally the zenith of the medium in every aspect. And that's why I say there is nothing like Attack on Titan. Ask Berserk fans how their anime adaptation is. Ask them. How about you ask all the authors of old with these great, wonderful novels how their works were adapted to film? Ask them. The closest thing can come to is The Great Gatsby. And the director of The Great Gatsby didn't even understand the story he was adapting. It's not like he could revive Scott Fitzgerald and have him look over the storyboard and improve upon what was already a great work. That can happen. And so, this is why Attack on Titan is extremely special. This is why we must cherish it. And so now, in this video, after it's been over a week and after I've had time to digest it, I'm going to go through, I want to show you why Attack on Titan is the immaculate masterpiece. Starting first with the writing, the foundation, and then we're going to build our way up. First, we're going to start with what is Attack on Titan. So, I can describe to you Attack on Titan in 3 words. Okay, in this order: contentment. I'm not middle fingering you. Contentment. I'm just emphasizing contentment, which is number 1. Contentment, forgiveness, love. Those are the 3 tenets, or the 3 messages Attack on Titan is about. Okay, and I can even use an interview for this. Like I can even sort of. And I really hate to twist Isayama's words because unfortunately, Isayama has had many interviews that have been very much politicized, and so Isayama cannot answer questions like an author, so he must answer like a politician because people keep trying to twist his words because they're politicized. But I just will throw it out to the audience. Isayama said in an interview that the story was about overcoming the worst parts of him. Like Eren reflects the worst parts in him and everyone else, and it's about getting rid of the worst parts of yourself. So I can make that fit under my interpretation. I don't want to really force Isayama's words. I really don't like to do that, but we just have that in the back of your mind. Just for grain of salt. Like, I'm not saying you have to believe or not believe anything. So the reason I put that in there is just because for people to say, how can you say what the story is about? I'm going to give my reason, of course, why, but also the author has mentioned in interviews what he thinks the story is about. So, contentment, forgiveness, love. Okay, those are the 3 tenets of Attack on Titan. And if I were to put them into phrases, here's what I would put in: the value of contentment, the necessity for forgiveness, and how to love. So that's what I'd say Attack on Titan's about. And the ending, absolutely 100% balanced all 3 of those themes that each have their own complexity with it. how Mikasa is supposed to love Eren is a very complex thing. How to use forgiveness to solve global war, it's a very complex thing. And how to use contentment as a means to bring about personal freedom is also a very complex thing. But Isayama and Mappa, in their masterwork that is known as Attack on Titan, executed all three of these things perfectly. Now let's start with number one. And this would be contentment. Attack on Titan is not a story chiefly about war and about humanity's futile attempts to end it. But it's chiefly about, what it's always been about, is about freedom. Freedom, 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 freedom. Personal freedom. And the three main characters do not concern themselves with global politics. The three main characters are chiefly concerned with personal issues. So, how does Attack on Titan show contentment is the way to freedom? Now this is done in a great way. What it does, it takes Eren, who was legitimately oppressed. He was legitimately in a situation where his freedom was taken away from him. And what they did, what the author did, was he gave him incredible, stupendous, nigh limitless power. In this context, of course, other contexts, like in the modern world, he wouldn't have limitless power, but in this context, he has nigh limitless power. And so one would think, if one has power, one has freedom. And Isayama actually says no. One cannot have freedom unless one's character is good, and then one may achieve freedom. And this, he even said this in a New York Times interview. Again, I really hate to twist his words, I said it beforehand, but he did say that the founder's power did entrap him and did imprison him, meaning that the story is portraying that you cannot have power to achieve testing. What? Okay. So the story is saying quite clearly, power doesn't equal freedom. You should not strive to earn power to get freedom. You should strive to work on your character, and then freedom will come from that. And how does Isayama does this? Well, Eren goes, again, on this journey where he has his power, and the power doesn't give him a single thing he wants. In fact, we know he cares about his friends, but wrapped up in this cocoon of lies and manipulation and war and all this stuff and planning, he ends up killing two of his friends, Hanji and Sasha. He says this himself. So even though he wanted freedom and power to protect his friends, he ended up in a situation where his own selfishness and his own lack of character made it so that his friends were hurt and they risked their lives. And the end of the show beautifully sums this up with Zeke and with Eren. So let's start with Zeke first. So Zeke thought that euthanasia. He thought that dying was the best, what was the way to achieve freedom, because being alive only means pain and suffering. Classic antinatalist position. And unlike real antinatalists, he actually had a reason for why he was being alive, but we won't talk about that. So Zeke strove for that because death was free. I mean, he says this explicitly in 137. He said maybe death brings some sort of relief, being released from it all. He describes death as freedom. Until Armin shows him, well, I should say paths show him what true freedom is. He holds up a leaf, because the leaf represents some intrinsic personal discovery that Armin had. So that leaf communicates that memory and that feeling to Armin, but to Zeke it appears as a baseball, because that baseball goes back to a memory where he intrinsically and innately understands how he felt in that moment playing baseball and what freedom actually was. And Zeke even asked, where did you get, and we'll get to this later, Zeke asked, where did you get that? There's a big emphasis on this baseball. It's not a baseball or a leaf. It's simply what the viewer views as freedom. Because people aren't convinced, I'm sure, I mean, we're all AOT fans, we've all had arguments on the internet, people aren't convinced by logic. People are convinced by something else. But if you can get to the deepest core of someone, and you can attack what is actually the issue deep in their soul, you can skip over all the logical arguments and go straight to that. And that's exactly what Paths allows you to do, because Paths is connected to that person's soul, so to speak. And so he showed Zeke exactly what he needed to be shown, which was a space ball. And I like the manga version much better, but I'm not going to complain since we got an amazing adaptation. He says in the manga, "What a beautiful day, if only I'd realized it earlier." Now, obviously, he's obviously not talking about the day. The day is nice. The day is nice, obviously. Or the weather in the anime. But what this is actually talking about is life was beautiful. If only I'd realized that early. And the other thing is that we can even go further into the parallels, because there is a battle. There's a battle happening currently. People are dying. The freaking rumbling is claiming lives. So there's definitely things you can look at and say, this is tragic, this is tragic, this is tragic. But the simplicity and joy of a beautiful day, that's all he needs to feel happy, or to in that moment. Or as I say, content. And then we go to Eren. So, and this is specifically in the anime, he specifically added this. His dream is bastardized. He dreamed of the ocean. The only ocean he got was the oceans of blood. Blood that he spilt. Blood he cannot take back. Secondly, another thing that was taken out of the anime, but Eren said the furthest thing removed from freedom is ignorance. So in 131, Core 1, when Eren is reveling in his freedom on top of the founding titan, not only is he surrounded by a figurative wall, and this is walls that are made out of the same material that which imprisoned him in Shigatsuya, he's also ignorant of what's happening below. So while he's ignorant, he's professing himself to be free. And this contradiction is integral to Eren's character. But the important thing we're gonna talk about later, but the important thing to focus on now is the fact that Eren's dream is bastardized, where he's not free with this, and then when he gets to the ocean, he's in the oceans of blood. And so in this ocean of blood, Armin grabs a seashell. And paralleling to Zeke, Eren's facial expression is poignant here. He's almost shocked. He has a very visceral reaction on his face to the seashells. Again, brilliant storytelling, incorporating the subtle and the explicit, showing him the seashell's important. And much like Zeke asks, he inquires about this object, and Armin delivers a line that perfectly succinks Eren's character and perfectly includes him and makes him exceedingly satisfying. In fact, Armin sums up the entire thesis of the show and Eren's character in one line. He says to Eren, "It was at our feet this whole time, but you were always looking off into the distance." Now, this line is not literally talking about when we got to the ocean, and you know how I know that. You can say, oh, it's headcanon. Obviously, we all know what it's talking about. Again, remember, the explicit with the implied. But he says, you were always looking off into the distance. He didn't say you were looking off into the distance, because if he was referring to that specific event, he would say you were looking off into the distance. But he's not referring to that explicit. He's not referring to that specific event. He's referring in the manner in which Eren lived his life. He had freedom at his feet the entire time, but he was always looking off into the distance. And he drove and drove and drove and drove and drove until he reached the pools of blood that he now is sitting in. And so that line, and with Zeke, and with everything else, that brilliantly shows the theme of contentment with AOT. So that's how Isayama concludes the theme of contentment. Now let's work to forgiveness theme. So this theme, in 112, Sasha's father lays out the way to maximize human flourishing and lessen human suffering is to forgive people. In that way, we can do our best in a bad situation. We know conflict's going to happen. We know this is going to happen. But the way we can make the best of the bad situation, and with contentment, we can forgive each other to get the children out of the forest. So, Isayama, of course, concludes on this perfectly, because what a lesser author would do is a lesser author would appeal to fan service, and he would punish the villains basically. And so none of the bad people in the show are punished ever. All of them are forgiven. And the reason why they're forgiven is because of this theme. Everyone, Annie, Reiner, Lady Mitsubu, Yelena, especially the Alliance, Armin, Mikasa, all of them are forgiven. None of them have to pay for what they've done. The reason why is because of what I said in 112. Forgiveness is the answer forward. And this is actually unclear in the manga, but in the anime it shows quite plainly they stay in Marley for 3 years so they can help them rebuild, help plant trees, and help them get back on their feet, so to speak. And this, of course, goes towards that theme. And it's so beautiful to see Levi handing out the lollipops and the children are all running around. Again, no one is going to look at that and say, this is an excellent, ideal situation. This is awesome. We got people in poverty. We got people missing family members. We got, ecosystems trampled. No one's going to say that's an ideal situation. But as I said before with the contentment theme, they're doing their best to make the best of a bad situation, and to see those kids playing outside, having a good time with their lollipops. That, again, balance, because in the same episode, and we're going to talk about this later, we had a baby almost be slaughtered. We had pregnant mothers, we had mothers who were being killed, and in that same episode, we had children playing outside. It's like the end of the song says, the light and shadow of civilization. Isayama perfectly strikes this balance between the cruelty of the world and the beauty of the world. See, now all this stuff, all the maxims are all coming together. And this makes for a very satisfying story. Because the story follows its plot lines from beginning to end, and follows messages from beginning to end. And on the last one about the societal message, because as I said beforehand, we have three messages at a time. Contentment, personal; forgiveness, societal; love, personal. So we have two personal messages, and we have one societal one. So in this one, to wrap up the forgiveness one, which is this message to society, we have this beautiful scene with Mikasa, reuniting with Eren, making up with Eren, having closure with Eren, and then we have, not 2 minutes later, we have total war and destruction, and then we have the boy coming into the forest, which again, whatever that boy is gonna do, whatever he means, it still symbolizes that life is still around. And so again, it's a very, very hard thing to balance, because on the one hand, you can go either way. You can either make it be like the ending haters, so I won't name, and be like, this season would just be extremely cruel, unforgiving, just death and destruction all across the board. Or you can go to the Disney route, so to speak. You can just have, it's just flowers and rainbows, and everyone's happy, and everyone's having a good time, kumbaya. But Isayama knows that that's not that simple. And there, again, light and shadow. There's both. So we do have the babies dying. We do have the children playing with lollipops. We do have the war. We do have life still. So it balances this very complex, but maybe not very complex, but it's not the most simple thing in the world, but it balances this theme very nicely. And I keep quoting the song. And the song, I think, does a wonderful, wonderful job explaining this. Which, to quote the song, it says, "Can you hear me? Leave the forest no matter how many times you get lost." Again, it's saying, I know you're gonna get lost. I know this is gonna happen. I know you're gonna feel the need to indulge in vengeance and indulge in retribution. But leave. I need you to leave the forest. Plants sprout in scorched fields. Again, what did I talk about earlier? Contentment. He's saying even in scorched fields, because that doesn't have to be the ideal situation. Even in scorched fields, plants and trees can still sprout. You can still make the best of a bad situation. Plants sprout in scorched fields. The light and shadow of civilization I saw all in the hollow of the great tree. What do you know? And that's the end of this. Oh, of course, Eren says, to you 2,000 years from now, 20,000 years from now in the track. But in the anime, that's the last thing you hear is, what do you know? Which, FD Salinger, I'm sorry, but your career is now over, because whoever is talking there, whether that's Eren, whether that's the hallucinogena, that is definitively saying that violence is not the answer, and that forgiveness is the answer, definitively. Because if it's Eren saying it, then Eren, the one who did the rumbling, who used violence to solve a problem, It's saying, no, I was wrong. Get out, leave, forgive people. And if it's a hallucinogen saying it, he's saying, I've been here since the dawn of time. You're but a child. You're not even 200 years old. What do you know? So that, I think the song, which again is new, the song, the way he balances the cruelty and beauty of humanity, Mikasa's maxim, that is just done very, very well, and it makes the story very rich and satisfying, because even in the song, it actually makes the destruction of paradise more tolerable, because it's saying everything just sets back, because earlier in the song it says something about, people fight and then it just reverts back to zero, with zero being, nature takes over. So it makes this very deeply, it used to be a very geopolitical thing with the last pages. So when the last pages were released, people would argue about it in more of a geopolitical sense, like, oh, Eren should have done this, Eren should have done that, this is bad for paradise. But with the song and the way Isayama does in the anime, it's less of a geopolitical thing and more of a, again, what it's intended to be, which is a societal message. And so I think that the extra additions with the song and the way that Isayama balances it, and again, the live pop scene is also a new scene. So these anime additions made that theme deliver smoothly, landed perfectly. So now we're going to talk about the theme of love. So how to love. So Mikasa is obviously a person who embodies this theme. And so this is why I say she's a well-written character, because if she embodies a third of the story, she's obviously well-written. Now, what it shows is the beauty and complexity of unconditional love. The ending, the story, Mikasa's character, and the story in the ending. So obviously Eren loves Eren unconditionally, which as I said in my Mikasa analysis, is a good thing. That's a good thing. The problem is that it causes her to do very bad things. At first when she's injuring Levi, and then it goes all the way up to, what she does in 127. You can figure that out for yourself. But the way that she learns to love Eren in the way that it's appropriate and healthy for her, and to move on from him while still holding him in her heart, is not only very admirable but very applicable. It's a great message. It's a great story, and it makes the story very, very beautiful, because originally there wasn't really that poetic beauty to it, because the other two themes we talked about were kind of nice, were kind of beautiful, but this theme of love, of course, is intrinsically beautiful and is deeply beautiful. And Mikasa, by the way she comports herself killing Eren, the way she comports herself after, and the way that Isayama explores the human condition, because what most people would think, and what most authors do, is they would have Mikasa killing Eren, that would be the end of her toxic relationship. Oh, she killed Eren, that must mean she's free now. No, because human beings aren't like that. And the reason why she's not free is because she never got closure with Eren. The last thing she heard from Eren was, forget about me, be free. As if remembering him is imprisoning her. That's not what is imprisoning her. What's imprisoning her is her the way that she comports herself with Eren. The toxic way in which she loves Eren, that's what's imprisoning her. What's imprisoning her is not her love for Eren, what's imprisoning her is certainly not remembering Eren. And so Mikasa is not fully recovered, even though she stepped up and killed Eren. She kills him and then she gets closure from Eren by the bird wrapping the scarf around her. A beautiful, beautiful scene. We'll talk about the beauty of the story later. And then and only then is she able to, as the song says, again, the songs really help the story a lot. She's able to face this cold again and again. And with that, she's able to face the world, put Eren in the appropriate place in her heart, and devote herself fully and chiefly to her husband and children, which she stayed married to her dying day. Okay, now all of you who says Mikasa did not get over Eren because she still has a scarf, she stayed married to that man until her dying day, what is usually looked upon as a momentous accomplishment, which it is. Being a mother, being a wife for decades on end is a momentous accomplishment and is indicative of her heart posture and the fact that she indeed did move on from Eren and move on. And what the story is trying to say, move on is forgetting, move on is throwing away mementos, moving on is having Eren occupy an appropriate space in her life, and that's exactly what Mikasa does. And so those three themes, which is the core of Attack on Titan, of three messages, I'd say, is the core of Attack on Titan, and the ending landed each and every one of them perfectly, flawlessly, without dispute. And so that is the first portion of this video, which is the writing. So now let's move on to the second portion of the video, which would be the character conclusions. Now, I only have a few characters on this list because I don't feel like any of the other characters got concluded. Because the other characters, their purpose in the story is to show the message by moving on. For example, Reiner, I don't think Reiner was really concluded, so to speak. His purpose was to, again, the forgiveness aspect, to move on, have a good life with his mother. Which, but I think there's only a few characters that got like concluded. And those characters, in no particular order, will be Eren, Mikasa, Ymir, Levi, and the Warrior's parents. So let's start with the Warrior's parents. Obviously, the Warrior's parents represented the contentment theme, which would be Mr. Lionheart, Karina, Peak's father, and actually, if you watch Core 1, this theme is hammered into you, and this is why in some instances the anime is actually better than the manga, because if you're reading the manga, these instances are spread out over multiple chapters, whereas in the Core 1, it's just all in 1 hour. So we get Lady Mitsubishi saying almost what I'm saying, which she says, how can we not realize what we have until it's lost? And wink, wink. I mean, that's very on the nose. We have Peak's father, Karina, and Mr. Lionheart all mourning the fact that they didn't spend more time with their children. And then, I mean, it's not the ending, but even way before that, we have Grisha with Zeke. And of course, in the next episode, we have Eren with Mikasa. So this thing is just hammered into you in Core 1, where they are not content or not happy. When I say content, I don't mean accept depression. I mean be happy in current circumstances and strive for better. Again, I'm not gonna talk about that right now. They weren't content with their children and with the love their children could provide them, and the joy their children could provide them, and thus they sought more, and it only led to more pain and misery. Hint, wink, wink. And then they eventually want the simpler stuff back, which was their children. And so, the ending of the Titan Curse, that I think, in my opinion, that's a character conclusion for Lionheart, Karina, Peak's father, so on and so forth. That very much perfectly concludes their character, and again, greatly conclude the theme that we talked about earlier. Now, next would be a fan favorite. Now, this was, the manga had many problems, and you're lucky and unlucky if you didn't read the manga. But this one, even in the manga, people thought was great. This would be Levi's conclusion. Now, I was one of the few people who I liked. I thought Ymir was great. I thought Mikasa was great. I thought Eren was great. I thought Armin was great. I thought the majority of the ending was great. The one thing I did not like was, and the one thing that I distinctly remember being like, what is this? When I was reading it in the woods, was Levi's conclusion. Because Levi says, this is what you guys dedicate your hearts for. And I mean that, like, you guys dedicate your hearts, so you guys can sacrifice a bunch of lives for Eren, only for Eren to betray you in the end, and you guys barely eke out a victory. Like, what? I didn't really understand. But, and I don't know, maybe the anime makes it more clear, maybe the pacing's better, I don't really know. But in the anime, now I finally understand why people like its conclusion. And this would be because, well, no, they did have some more scenes with Levi. This would be the fact that Levi dedicated his heart and put it all on the line for an impossible dream of the Titans being gone. To get rid of the Titans, that's what he wanted. This was a very idealistic, it was a long shot. And they sacrificed lives after lives after lives after lives, and he gave his all. Thank you for the animators, by the way, because that scene was incredible. He gave his all, and then finally, a beaten, battered Levi finally got to see the end of the Titan Curse with the dogs playing in the background. Oh, what a gorgeous, beautiful scene. And under the providence of God, I was listening to the dogs at work the hours prior. I obviously didn't know it was going to be in the scene, so of course, listening to it at work beforehand, thinking of the ending, and then having it playing the ending at the exact right time. And then when you're listening to the song, you're thinking, oh, this was foreshadowing this the entire time. Oh, it's circular storytelling. It was great. It was wonderful. And Levi's theme was concluded obviously very perfectly. And then, of course, we have the added scenes of him doing the wild hop to the kids, because now he's done fighting. Now he gets to go and bring joy to the world instead of, having to kill a bunch of people, which, again, that small scene concludes him very, very well. And so I think that Levi was handled with the utmost care, and his conclusion was great. And people were gonna hate me for this. People were really gonna be mad. But I think Ymir Fritz, I think she had a great conclusion. I mean, listen. I'm just gonna say it. It's very controversial. I'm just come on. What else? I'm just gonna say it. Listen, Ymir deals with an issue that is very, very unfortunate, and unfortunately is very, very real. Unfortunately, people like her exist. Very unfortunately. And the way Isayama does it, I thought the way Isayama did this was he gave people a lot of hope. I thought that this was what he was doing with Ymir was to paint a very hopeful message, which is, you can be messed up, you can go through trauma, but you can still, there's people who understand you and have gone over it, and you can get over it too. I'm specifically referring to Mikasa when I say that last part, but Ymir is just more than just what Mikasa did for her. Ymir went through 3 stages. With Eren, in 122, Ymir valued, basically, I think she valued herself. She gained some self-worth. Or she understood the concept of freedom. Now, for you and I, the concept of freedom is very easy for us to grasp, because we're raised in an environment that allows us to think that way. But I am telling you, there's people in certain instances that do not have that paradigm. And so Eren shows her that, of her issues. Armin shows her the meaning and the value of human life, because, as Invader said, she's been here for 2,000 years, she's been slaughtering people for 2,000 years straight. How could her only choice is to not feel for human life, to be very apathetic. But Armin shows her that. And then lastly, Mikasa, the person who understands her the most out of all the people that are in the story, gets over her last issue, which is her bondage to King Fritz. And so that, I think that was a great way to conclude her character. I think it's a very hopeful message. Again, I'm not an apologist anymore, so if you're mad about it, leave a comment. I may not respond. But the other thing is that people like to say, "Oh, Ymir, how could Mikasa free Ymir when Ymir was freed in 122?" And I always simply say to that, if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and if someone asks, I am 5 years sober. Now, I have been 3 months sober. I drank, I went back. Happened for 2 months, I drank and went back, and now today, 5 years ago, is the last time I ever drank. And I'd like to thank my mother, my best friend, and my counselor for helping me through this. No one would say he is retconned. No one. Not a single person. Even though he stopped drinking for 3 months and then went back to drinking, learned his lesson and did it again, people understand human failure and human weakness. People understand that. And people also understand in the last part that he had 3 people who helped him. His therapist helped him in one way, his counselor. His counselor helped him in one way. His mom helped him in another way, and his best friend helped him in another way. And no one questions it. No one's confused. No one says, "Oh, well, you were freed by your mother in 122. How come you're not? How come you need your counselor? How come you needed this?" Everyone understands this. So I think it's just a very disingenuous criticism. I think that they're not really engaging with this like how it's supposed to be engaged with. I think this is actually a great portrait of the human condition in this certain circumstance. And I think that it's I think Ymir's conclusion is satisfying. Again, you may disagree. Now, let's move on to Eren. Unlike the manga, he laid out all his motivations wonderfully. He says, he thought he was doing it for his friends. He was wrong about that, and he eventually realized this was all for him. He wanted to see this site up, the site of eradicating 8% of humanity. And this is what was missing. This is why I was so angry watching Felina, because Breaking Bad does a great job of fulfilling, but of explaining the character motivations. Because at the end of the story, the mask should come off, whether in an internal monologue or a letter or a dialogue. The mask has to come off. We have to have everything laid out in the end. And so Walter White going to Skylar, saying that, obviously, you know what I'm talking about, that made his character satisfying and conclusive, because we understood who he was and why he was acting the way he was acting. It all made sense. even though he was contradicting himself, like, oh, I'm doing this for family, but then he would do this. Oh, I'm doing this, then he would again contradict himself. And so Eren lays it quite plainly, as I said beforehand. Eren had a very mindset, or as he says, he's an idiot. And when the idiot or a child gets power, it's not going to go well. And so that's exactly what happened. Eren was infused. Eren had a horrible, warped mindset, and since he was infused with incredible power, this is the result that happened. And so it explains the events of the story, explains Eren's character, it concludes him very well. And the other thing about Eren is that, as I alluded to in the previous segment, Eren is a walking contradiction. He is a contradiction. As I said beforehand, he is a very, very complex character with multifaceted and contrary goals. But he has a very simple, he says quite simply what happens. He says, I'm just an idiot, this is why this happens. So he has complex simplicity. In the prior chapter, Eren says he enjoys hell. He enjoys hell, he has complex simplicity, and he's a slave to freedom. All these oxymorons, because Eren himself is a contradiction. And Eren's a contradiction, not just being the sake of a contradiction. Of course, that would have no merit in this world. The reason why he's a contradiction is because his what he views as freedom is warped. And so, since he's not operating in the real world, since he views freedom as a thing which it is intrinsically not, he has no choice but to be a contradiction. He thinks 2 is 4. And so, in order to make his worldview work, he has to contradict himself. If you showed him 2 cell phones, you'd have to say that is 4 cell phones, and you would have to operate in a way that would imply that he believes that 2 cell phones is 4 cell phones, thus contradicted himself. And that is why his contradiction, or in his oxymorons, that is why it is good, as what makes him well written, because it goes to the themes of the story and it is 100% applicable in this world. So no, he's of course it's a contradiction. He says as much in Akuma Go. Of course it's a contradiction, but it's a contradiction for a very, very, very good reason, and this is what makes him honestly one of the greatest characters in all of literature, honestly. Yeah, what a wonderful character. What a man you are. Now we're going to go on to one of my favorite conclusions. This would be Mikasa. In Court 2, her hesitation to kill Eren is turned up to 11. They really, really lay it on thick. In fact, there's a great scene in which, and again, you can't replicate this on a page, where Annie's like, Mikasa, and she can't hear. Mikasa! Because she's so wrapped up in this worry, and this sadness, and this grief, and she gets snapped. Eventually, she has to get snapped out of it by Annie. And there's many, many scenes where her face says a lot. And to have her go through that journey, and then to get to 138, where she kills Eren, and how she really, fully accepts the situation and knows it's the best possible for Eren. The best thing for Eren is best thing for Eren, best thing for the world is best thing for her personally. And so she, without hesitation, uses those skills to do what needs to be done in 138 without hesitation, without resignation. The poise in which she conducts herself, the lack of hesitation, it's a sight, but it's incredible in my opinion. It's great, and that's what makes her killing Eren so satisfying. It's perfectly written. Like this has to be done in such a specific way, and if this was done any other way, it would be less. It'd be worse. But Isayama knows how to write this narrative so wonderfully that even a character who's underdeveloped and poorly written and shallow like Mikasa, it's just done flawlessly. It's done perfectly. Again, I'm running out of words to say. This is just really a masterpiece. Now, I explained to you how Mikasa comports herself and how she shows the themes of love. But this, oh man, Isayama went over maybe I guess he added the most to Eren's, but of all the conclusions, he went over this one with a fine-tooth comb, refining everything, and he refined it in a way that only a motion picture can do. And this is why I say it's one of the greatest stories ever told. Because unfortunately, we have wonderful novels, lots of wonderful novels in this world. But unfortunately, you lose many layers when they're put to film, and when they're not put to film. Sorry, you lose many layers when they're not put to film. And one of these layers, two of these layers, would be the voice acting and the facial expressions. You cannot convey to someone a facial expression through a novel. It's just impossible. And you cannot convey motion through a comic book. This can only be done by a motion picture. And the second thing is you cannot have the voice acting in a novel or a graphic novel. This is only reserved for motion pictures. And Mikasa's voice actor was so intertwined with this character, it comes off wonderfully. The final product is amazing. And she said this much. She said that she was overlapping with Mikasa. In fact, she was so connected with Mikasa, the voice actor for Mikasa, that after she was done recording the final lines, she wept after. That's how connected to the story she was. And that's why she delivers a legendary once-in-a-lifetime performance. So, lots of things change in her conclusion. First off, he added a frame of Mikasa remembering Eren snapping into the tree, and it's like this illusion where it's next to her, and Eren's walking up to her. That's a new addition. Her facial expressions are so on point, as I alluded to earlier. Her facial expressions are so on point. I can't describe them. I'm gonna put a clip. Like, I really can't put it to words, but her facial expressions convey so much emotion. The subtle breathing in of the voice actor, it's wonderful. And of course, the circular storytelling, which is a quick hack to make any story satisfying, referring back to chapter 50, which refers back to chapter 6, tying the whole narrative together. Thank you for wrapping this scarf around me, as the track plays in the background. It's just absolutely incredible, and the way that everyone delivered, everyone played their position perfectly. The Linked Horizon played their position perfectly. Mikasa's voice actor played her position perfectly in the song, because also Mikasa's voice actor's in the song, so Mikasa's singing. Mikasa's voice actor played her position perfectly. Twofold, the animators animated her face to perfection. And of course, Isayama writing this gorgeous conclusion to her story. So yeah, I mean, it's just, Mikasa's conclusion is just, it was already good. It was one of the best parts of the manga, but he made it infinitely better in the anime. And so that would be for the character conclusions. And now let's move on to the next portion of the video. It would be the beauty of Attack on Titan. So Attack on Titan was not something that people thought was going to be a very beautiful story. It was a story that about death and destruction and fighting and violence. But surprisingly, it turned out to be an exceedingly beautiful story. Of course, I already talked ad nauseum about Mikasa's conclusion, which is a masterpiece in of itself. That very scene in isolation is a masterpiece. But so that's very beautiful, very poetic. But the other thing is even going further, just The love story between these two, it's almost a visible phantom love story. It's very, very endearing and very, very poetic. I mean, we have Mikasa when she kills Eren. Mikasa's image is reflected in Eren's eyes as he's seeing her, as he's seeing himself being killed by her. The whole "see you later" circle of storytelling, which was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. People kept asking me, why did they keep AoE people? Why do they keep putting "see you later" in the trailer if it's not important to the story? Or if there's no AoE, why do they keep putting "see you later" in? And the reason why is because they are building it up. They put "see you later" in Core 1, and they put it in the trailer at the end of their trailer, so that when he finally got to that moment, you felt, immediate, very poetic. It was very satisfying. It was, again, more circular storytelling, having Mikasa finally reveal the mystery behind "see you later, Eren." And then, of course, she kisses his head after. And then we have all the songs. You have this very wonderful, the animation, these little cartoons, "See you later," which is a wonderful song. And then the full track, as if that couldn't get more beautiful, the full track is even more beautiful. Talking about, we even have the heartbeat. The artist of the song, she believes that Eren could still maintain his hearing during after he got killed, and so Mikasa put him on her breast. He could still hear her heartbeat. So in the song, she adds a line about if he listens closely, he can hear heart beating, and a beating heart is heard in the track. Gorgeous. I mean, it just moves people to tears. And then we have, even the song itself has beautiful poetry. At the beginning of the song, she says, "I've been looking for where the heart I dedicated was, the location of my heart was." At the end of the song, she goes through this journey talking about, again, contentment, how about how Eren shook away her hand and he soared up, but then now he's finally with Mikasa. Again, very, very poetic, goes through the theme to the story. At the end of the song, after going through this very visceral, poignant journey, at the end of the song, she says, "Who would have thought it? Who would have guessed it? The location of my heart was right here, right next to yours." And the song ends. And then we have another very wonderful song, a very poetic, beautiful song, which is the song prior, the Link's Horizon song, the "To You 2,000 years from now," or rather 20,000 years from now. This wonderful ballad of Mikasa talking about missing Eren and how Eren gives her the strength to fight on. And then we have beautiful, cool world, and we also have a Kumiko. Wonderful, wonderful masterpieces of songs. We have the in-story circle storytelling, Tarashai, the art that's being used, Mikasa's image reflecting in Eren's eyes. And we have all these gorgeous master works of songs that are in here that just adds this layer of incredible beauty to Attack on Titan that we all did not suspect upon first viewing, and that somehow, some way, it is woven into the narrative quite masterfully in a way that does not interfere with the overarching narrative. And so, while that might be a minor part of the story, I thought it was so important. It was such a major reason why people love the story that I had to add it into this segment. And so, with that being said, we're going to move into the last segment, and that would be the elevation. Everything in the story, every aspect, was elevated to its highest possible extent. The first one we'll talk about, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Afumi Ami. And this is the animator who drew animated for season 1, but he specifically animated the scene where Mikasa kills Eren. And this scene, oh man, this scene again was absolutely flawless. And oh man, like the journey we went on with Mappa from part 1, which was atrocious, like actually like to the point where it's distracting, to flawless animation in a scene that did not need to be that way. That scene, if you did not read the manga, that scene was in an ODM scene. That was an ODM. There's a lot of scenes in the manga that are ODM scenes. That is not one of them. That is most certainly not one of them. They looked at this scene and they said, how can we make this better? And they said, they looked at us and they said, okay, that's how we're gonna make it better. It's gonna be exceedingly difficult because they had to do a lot, but we're gonna make this better. And so, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Amai went in and animate this scene absolutely flawlessly, and I do mean flawlessly. Watch that in slow motion. When Levi puts the last thunder spear in Eren's mouth, not a single frame is dropped. I'm telling you, it's just flawless animation. They worked on this. They worked on 2 hours. They worked on Core 1 and Core 2 for a year and a half. That's how much they put into this. It's amazing. Like the camera movements, again, the voice acting, which again, I'm telling you, the voice acting is very important here because again, we're talking about Levi specifically. The voice that he has, the scream has so much meaning because we know everything that happened prior. This is his last stand, and he's putting it all into this moment, and it's the last time he has to fight, and he's putting it all into this moment. And the animators, it's their last time animating this, and they're putting it all into this, and so we get this weird sort of thing where the characters in the show and the animators are all overlapping to create, I mean, just exhilaration is the only thing I can describe it as, because we're seeing the characters and the animators, who we both went on journeys, highs and lows, both characters come together for their last stand and just show out and play their position perfectly. It is absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And they, oh yeah. So props to them. Of course, I talked ad nauseam with the music. The music was absolutely perfect in every single scenario. The CGI, which again was a huge problem. Battle of Heaven and Earth onward, perfect. Perfect. Nothing was wrong with it at all. Nothing was wrong with the compositing. Again, we're getting very technical here, but the compositing was very well done. The fire was was done very excellently. Again, talking about voice actors again. Armin screaming in Paz, and when he found Eren, heart-wrenching, blood-curdling screams that you just can't replicate onto a page. But it's done so well. Again, as I said, everyone played their position perfectly. Because I wrote that line in the manga, but when it comes to film, now we have more factors in that, but everyone played their part perfectly. I don't know if it's just me, but the mic quality also just seemed to have been better than beforehand. And I asked my friends, like, is this just me, or do you guys know the difference? They said, yeah, we do notice the difference for sure. When Mikasa says "see you later," it's very clear. Which is the thing right with Scruff from me, it's just clearer than normal. I don't know what it is, but the mics, they even changed studio. If you look at 100K, they even changed studios. The mics are just much clearer. The scene with Grisha saying "Eren, you're free," in my opinion, that was the same scene, but in the anime, it's just much better. The direction and the voice acting, the mic quality was just all came together to make it perfect. Like even the slight, you said like 3 or 4 lines, but the voice actor still knocked it out of the park. And the director knew exactly how to do it, and exactly how to make it. The tension was absolutely perfect in the battle scenes. And you're probably wondering, people are probably wondering when we talk about this, but the other major thing that got elevated was the baby, the Schrodinger's list baby thing. Oh wow. What a scene! What a scene! That was something else, man. That was, again, this is really one for the history books, because not only did they add those gorgeous shots of the zebras in India and a lot of other countries that the Titans visited, just gorgeous, beautiful shots, which would already be enough to talk about for ad nauseum, but to incorporate that technique from Schrodinger's list was shocking. It was shocking. It was surprising. It made it seem more horrifying. And what made it even more horrifying is that was a scream of the Yogataji's baby. The baby that was screaming is the baby of Eren's voice actor that they had screaming when they didn't bring the baby into the studio. They had a recording on their phone. They put it to the microphone, but Yogataji's baby screaming. It's just an incredibly well done scene. It's perfection. As I said, it's the zenith of the art of the media, of this. It's the zenith of this form of media. It's absolutely incredible. And so, with all those things, all those minor things, they add up, and they make what is known as this. All those little things, little details, they make a masterpiece. The masterpiece is in the details. It's in the details. And with so many things, so many factors that could have gone wrong, to have every single one of those factors go completely correctly, go completely well, it just makes AOT a special work. Okay, that was kind of a long video, but Attack on Titan really deserves one. It really deserves a long video. None of this, I don't want to insult anyone, but like the 5-minute reviews, I don't know, like you could do more. It really does deserve the attention and respect. That is my full, complete breakdown of the final episode and why Attack on Titan is an immaculate masterpiece and why it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I'm just very, very grateful to Siyama, to Mappa, to all the staff, the voice actors, to Ryzen. I wish I could pronounce the girl's name. The girl who wrote Kumiko. Everyone did phenomenal and left us with such an incredible work. So that's the end of the video. Make sure to like and subscribe. Obviously, click the links in the description, and I'll see you in my next video.